us to try to navigate. So real quick on the agenda today, we have some really exciting topics. Okay, so we're going to discuss the different types of employee motivation, as well as some specific tactics for you to use right away to motivate your employees. Employee engagement is one of those elusive topics that many people aren't sure how to define, address, or even measure. So we will be digging into that as well. We're going to address some real issues happening right now that we're all facing as a result of the global pandemic, and make way for Generation Z. We're going to use some of our time today to prepare for the newest group of individuals entering the workplace. So we're going to start with motivation. Motivating employees to perform at their best is one of the most important parts of your job. Productive, well-trained employees make the business unit strong and successful, but there's a lot more to motivating employees than just the occasional pat on the back. Successful motivation is a daily activity that requires the use of a combination of techniques and a variety of motivators. So why is this so important? Effectively motivating your employees has many benefits. For starters, it helps you as managers and supervisors. It helps you to develop skilled workers who can take initiative and get things done. It encourages high quality performance with all employees working up to their full potential. It creates an effective team with each employee pulling his or her own weight. It helps employees find greater job satisfaction. So they're happier, they're more productive, and they leave less. Your turnover is lower. And it assists with their personal growth and development by helping them improve their skills and gain new and challenging work experiences. It molds future leaders. It prepares them for advancement within your group or into other departments, thus strengthening your whole organization. And it prepares your department to meet future needs by creating a more competent and experienced workforce. So here's some facts about motivation. In order to achieve the benefits from it, we really need to kind of dig into this a little bit more. So motivation is both intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic motivation comes from within, what's inside of ourselves, while extrinsic motivation is from the external factors. When you are intrinsically motivated, you engage in an activity because you enjoy it, and you get personal satisfaction from doing it. When you're extrinsically motivated, you do something in order to gain an external reward. And so you have the power as managers and supervisors to influence extrinsic motivation, but it's your responsibility to discover what motivates your people intrinsically, okay? Key among these is also the fact that all employees need motivation. Sometimes our tendency is to focus in on our problem kids, you know, the ones that maybe are a little bit disengaged or need to kind of be brought up to speed with the position. And that's just sort of the name of the game, but it's your best performers that you need to also continue to motivate and keep working towards their full potential. Another important fact is that money isn't all the only thing that motivates people. Sure, it's important. People need to pay their bills. No one can deny that it is important, but it may be a motivator, which we don't always have control over. Okay, so we're really not going to focus on anything related to money or compensation today. We're just going to be talking about the other things that we do have control. It's also important to note that motivators vary from person to person. What motivates one of your employees might actually be a demotivating factor for another. So it's important to try to use a variety of techniques. And then finally, for best results, just be prepared to change motivators when an employee's circumstances or the organizational goals change. All right, so we've got a few poll questions, and I'm going to ask Valerie if you would put the first poll question up for us. All right, so if you had to choose one thing that motivates you the most in the workplace, what would it be? And y'all take a moment to answer that. Got some answers coming in. And I know you probably are motivated by a lot of these, but you really I just want you to pick the number one, the top one.
Let me know, Mandy, when you're ready to end the poll.
Okay, it looks about like we've got about 50% participation. Did you go ahead and close that now? Okay, we can end it now. All right, so can y'all see these results? All right, so we're looking at a pretty wide variety of results here. We've got clearly defined objectives and goals, exciting work, being heard, praise, recognition, respect, opportunities for growth. So what can we gain from that information? It's that just in this group right here, we all have things that are going to be different, right? We all have things that motivate us differently, and your employees are no different. So, and of course, that was a list there of just some common intrinsic and extrinsic motivators, right? So the idea of this is that we really kind of think about ways to get to know our employees and what their preferences are. So motivation begins with leadership, your leadership. And to motivate your employees to work harder and smarter, you have to help them see how they fit into the big picture and to see their role, their part in your mission. When people share a vision for the future, they are inspired to achieve. As a leader, you also need to provide direction. Your employees need to know what the parameters of successful performance are, and they need a leader who will guide their activities to successful completion. You must be consistent so that everyone knows exactly what is required in every situation. And set high standards, and your employees will rise to meet them. People are also bonded by commitment to goals. You can encourage commitment by being committed to department and company goals yourself, and expecting commitment from each employee. So aligning their individual goals with those of the shared group is really important. In order to successfully motivate your employees, you also have to make sure that they know you care about them. They need to know you'll be there when they need you for support, and for assistance, for advice. You need to be accessible when they have problems or even suggestions. Accessibility is a cornerstone of motivation. And finally, if you can only motivate workers if they trust you. So they need to know you stand behind your promises and can be relied upon under all circumstances. So, now it's just kind of a way to sort of reflect individually. Think about the current expectations that you have of your employees, the goals that you set for them, and the standards to which you hold them. Are they high enough to be motivational, but reasonable enough to be achievable? And that's something I want you to think about anytime that you are goal setting. So we're going to dig into a couple of different approaches that you can take. So along with formal training and annual performance reviews, you can use informal coaching as a motivator. I'm sure probably some of you already use this technique. I find it to be one of the most effective because it is the most relatable and typically one of the easiest to implement if you are in a situation where you are in close proximity to your direct reports. And so I like to take the approach of the coach. We all have them, that one person who pushed us beyond what we thought we were capable of, who guided us through some difficult struggles and challenged us to do our best. For some, this might be a family member. For others, maybe a leader or a boss. But for many of us who grew up playing sports as kids, we had an incredible coach who inspired us. Coaching gives you the opportunity to work with your employees individually, to get to know them better, and to find out what they really want from their work. It gives employees a chance to get personal attention and meet regularly with you to discuss performance, issues, opportunities, and so on. Coaching gives you the chance to get together with employees between regular scheduled evaluations to review your progress in real time, adjust your goals, and troubleshoot obstacles to achieve objectives. In addition, this time spent with the employees gives you the opportunity to provide additional feedback about their performance. You can praise workers for good results and correct inadequate performance more easily in this informal setting. Now, those of you that played sports, use the chat. Did anyone play sports growing up as a kid? I played soccer for years. It's been a long time. Let's see. Softball, there we go. Basketball, track. Fantastic. All right, Tori. Tori, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. So you were a basketball player. Now, let's say you were in the middle of a game and your teammate was distracted or focused on their own performance, right? And you were wide open. You had a great shot, okay? They had people all over them. They were, you know, not able to get up the court, and they made the shot and they missed, okay? Think back to those types of moments as best you can. Did you stand by and wait for your coach to say something to your teammate? Probably not. You're 5 feet away from them. You were probably like, hey, I was wide open. I called for the ball. You know, pay attention. Likewise, right? If your teammate was doing great and made a fantastic shot, you didn't stand there quietly and wait for your coach to give them praise. You probably did it yourself. You said, way to go, excellent shot. Give them a high five. So this is called creating peer accountability, okay? When you take the approach of a coach, you start to insist on accountability in your employees. And what this does is this gives them the opportunity to start holding themselves accountable. Okay, when the success of your team is dependent on everyone doing their best, the more you hold your employees accountable, the less you will have to. I'm going to say that one more time. The more you hold them accountable, the less you'll have to do it, because they're going to start putting this on themselves. They're going to start feeling more comfortable asking their coworker, hey, you know, you did say this was going to be ready by 3 o'clock and it's not. Is there a reason why, or is there something I can do to help you so that we don't miss this deadline? This is going to be one of the #1 pieces for you, because it's going to allow you more time to focus on other things, because you have your employees holding themselves to these standards and in real time checking in with each other so that you don't have to turn around and go back and check on them all the time, right? So they become the primary source of accountability, not the ultimate source. That's still you, right? But they spend probably more time around each other. And so it allows for that to happen, okay? So you kind of just develop a unit. One other really good technique, especially when you have maybe, not the ability to promote an employee, but you have employees that are really, really enthusiastic to be there. They want to learn, they want to grow. There are ways for you to provide them these challenges so that they do, find excitement and are encouraged to continue to work. So challenge is a powerful motivator. And one way to challenge employees is to try to make their work more interesting, even the most routine tasks, okay? And you can do that by the following. Challenge them to find better, more efficient ways to perform routine jobs. If they come to you and they're complaining about something being dull or monotonous or inefficient, tell them, okay, well, propose a better way of doing it, or come to me with some different ideas to fix this. That gives them an opportunity to not really focus on complaining, but to work towards a better solution for everyone. Cross-training. Cross-training is great if you're able to. It can motivate employees by providing them with new skills and different experiences. It also allows employees to enjoy some variety in their routine and gain a better understanding of their coworkers' needs and problems. It also helps them grow within the organization because they get a better idea of everything that's done. Broadening their responsibilities. Broadening to include, more difficult things like planning, problem solving, quality control. Obviously make sure that you're appointing this to employees that are ready for that. But this can add some more challenging aspects of the job sequence and keep them, especially your high performers, really challenged and motivated. Teaming up coworkers and making a team responsible for an entire operation or project. Again, this kind of helps reiterate the peer accountability piece. Give them, certain guidelines, deadlines, parameters, and then let them go. Let them work on that together as a team and hold each other accountable. It will bring them closer together as a unit, and it also helps your organization. And another way to use challenge as a motivator is to expose employees to new experiences. If an opportunity arises where you're able to do that. When people are exposed to work that they've never done before, they're forced to think and act in new and exciting ways. So this is another layer that you can add to bring in some motivational ideas. Motivation and engagement are very closely related, and they work very close hand in hand. So I'm going to switch gears for a minute, and we're going to dive into more of the engagement piece. Okay, motivation is one of the factors of employee engagement, but it's often one that we can control, and so that's one that we wanted to highlight today. But overall, in engagement, let's see, what is that thing that sets great companies apart from good companies? What keeps your rock star performer from accepting that job offer to go somewhere else for a higher salary? It's engagement. And employee engagement is the key to building a successful organization. But driving employee engagement doesn't come easily. Why is this so difficult for many teams and companies to do well? All right, we have another poll question. Valerie, if you wouldn't mind bringing up our second poll. What percentage of US workers are actively engaged in their work? What would you say? Okay, we've got some 22%, 33%, 49%, pretty good even mix. All right. Okay, the polls are slowing down a little bit. Let's see if we can share that. All right, so the majority think it's about 33%. Now, it's actually, it's actually 22%. And that's kind of a shocking number for me to think about. Globally, it's about 18. So I guess we're doing better than the rest of the world. But it was, that was kind of a shocking number. In fact, when I was looking through these polls, and there's several from PricewaterhouseCoopers and Gallup, and they kind of all are within a 2 to 3 percentage mark. There are 3 types of employees in any organization. As we said before, the 22% that are actually actively engaged, these employees are loyal and emotionally committed to the organization. They're in roles where they excel and where their talents are leveraged. They enthusiastically invest in their work and they take on responsibilities outside of their job description. They're generally more likely to become emerging leaders and will stay with an organization much longer than disengaged employees. Okay, then you have the biggest group in the workforce, those that are considered not engaged. They're not disengaged, they're not engaged, they're kind of just there. These employees can be difficult to identify because they're often relatively happy and satisfied in their role. They come to work every day, they produce good work. However, they might do the bare minimum of what's expected, or they're not really invested in the company's mission and vision. They're less likely to be customer focused or focused on those there, and are not concerned about productivity or how the company is doing. These team members are both a threat and a great opportunity because with the proper approach, they can be transformed into engaged employees that thrive. And then you do have the smallest percentage of actively engaged employees. And we have, at some point or another, all worked alongside one. They are consistently negative, create a toxic environment, dominate their manager's time, and are usually vocal about their unhappiness. They don't sit by quietly, typically. What's worse is they're often subject matter experts, or they're well respected in their unique set of skills, which is why they're still there. Because of that, they often have significant influence over others. These employees can easily spread toxicity through an organization, and unfortunately, they can rarely be transformed into truly engaged players. So just something to think about there with those numbers. When it comes to defining employee engagement, here we are, years after this has been examined for a few decades, and not all the experts and research companies have the same definition of employee engagement. For example, Quantum Workplace defines employee engagement as the strength of mental and emotional connection employees feel toward their place of work. Gallup, engaged employees are those who are involved in, enthusiastic, and committed to their work in a workplace. According to Willis Towers Watson, employee engagement is employees' willingness and ability to contribute to company success. It's a little bit different. Ian Hewitt defines engagement as the level of an employee's psychological investment in their organization. So one of the simplest ways to put all of these thoughts and concepts into a digestible definition is this. In essence, employee engagement is the emotional commitment the employee has to the organization. When employees feel engaged, they care about the company and they do the best work they can to achieve the goals of the organization. When they're engaged, their number one objective is to contribute to the success of everyone. Employee engagement is not about employee benefits or bonuses. It's about being part of a successful organization. So what are some ways in which you can increase engagement in your employees? Start at the very beginning of the employee life cycle. Engagement starts on their very first day. You should not only focus on the way that you hire individuals, but also pay attention to the way you onboard those individuals. To really engage your employees, you should focus on an employee engagement activities from day one. Employees shouldn't show up to discover that they don't have a desk or a uniform or a badge. This sends the wrong message. Instead, make sure new employees start their first day engaged with a functional workspace, whatever supplies they need, if you have company branded items, and even, to help welcome them to the team. If leaders expect high performance and productivity from new employees, they should make those extra efforts to engage them from the moment they arrive. Prepare an itinerary for their very first day to include, onboarding training, as well as one-on-one instructions and activities with other team members. Another step to helping members feel passionate about their work is make sure they feel connected to the company vision and purpose. You have an absolutely fantastic one. And those that come to work for you, I hope, share in those goals and in your mission. So it starts with communicating your company mission and values, but it's also about explaining how individuals and the work that they do contribute to the greater organization's purpose. To help employees gain a deeper connection to the company, it's essential that they understand the culture. Create experiences for your new hires that show them how teams operate, how team members communicate with one another, and the types of messages that your leadership delivers. Outlining desired behaviors and expectations can help reinforce how they can be a part of something bigger than themselves. And it's so important to remember to tie your employee engagement strategy to your culture strategy, okay? Don't embark on two different initiatives, combine them. And by integrating engagement activities and culture strategies, employee engagement will be more than just an HR initiative. It becomes something that the entire organization is focused on. It's important to connect with employees often. We talked a little bit about this when we were talking about the coaching approach. It's critical for leaders to get to know new employees on a personal level, help them feel part of the team. This means getting to know some of their preferences, and how they like to work. Leaders can also ask about what keeps them motivated. When we talked about those intrinsic motivators, you're not going to know what those are if you don't ask. So it's important, get to know them. Say, what makes you excited to come to work every day? That's a simple question, and it's one that will give you a lot of insight onto what it is that motivates them. Ask, and it doesn't always have to be work related. You can kind of get an idea from asking other questions. What are some of their hobbies? Where's their favorite restaurant? Get to know them, let them know that you understand that knowing them on a personal level is maybe important to them, especially when we get to Gen Z here in a little bit. Another tip to ensuring leaders connect with their new employees often, team leaders may also choose to connect new employees to a mentor or a peer group so they feel connected to other new colleagues. This is a great incentive. It's two parts really. It helps your new hire really quickly sit down with someone and get to know the nitty-gritty of the job. And it also gives that mentor some leadership experience, some coaching experience. So you're helping both employees when you do that. And connecting with employees early and often will not only result in a happy employee, but also increase their chances of feeling at ease and like they belong. Most importantly is never stop onboarding. I can't stress this enough. Don't think of onboarding as having an expiration date, okay? Instead, turn it into an ongoing experience with regular check-ins and feedback that goes beyond 30, 60, or 90 days. Leaders should remember that recognition for good work can happen at any time, okay? Recognizing in real time during a team meeting or at lunch will continue to inspire new employees through their first year and into the next. And never stop building connections, both with team members and across your entire organization. Remember, those activities such as peer-to-peer mentoring or creating special work groups and teams, those go a long way to connecting people and building a very strong culture for your organization. Some concrete actionable steps involving upping the engagement level here are some of these here. Evaluate processes and address inefficiencies, okay? Unnecessary tasks slow down processes and can cost a lot of money for the company. So more than that, it's frustrating for employees and for you. So tedious extra steps prompt employees to just kind of switch on cruise control, which can sometimes mean they're not really paying as much attention and they're definitely not engaging in the work that they're doing. So it's important to, if you have things that are, unnecessary, can be done, you should recognize that, maybe let's address this. Is there a way to fix this? And carefully analyze each process and look for ways to smooth it out, or task a capable team member to do that, or a work group to do that. Second is continue to learn and expand your own leadership development. Well, you're doing that right now. You've had 3 days of development and trainings, and I hope you're getting a lot out of it. So it's important because it's estimated that how an employee rates their managers accounts for about 15% of their level of engagement. So you play a critical role in helping your employees remain engaged to the company. So take full advantage of any training programs or opportunities for leadership development to help better equip yourselves to manage others. Prioritize feedback. Optimal amounts of feedback correlate with positive manager reviews. So even managers who give their direct reports too much feedback, even managers that give their direct reports too much feedback still are rated higher than those who don't provide enough. Okay, so what's the point? Employees crave feedback and it influences their level of engagement. I just saw a couple of things here in the chat. I'm going to have to check this out as soon as we get to the, I've got one more slide and then I want to go to some of your comments because I want to talk about them with you. And then lastly is foster innovation. Think about ways that your teams can protect time to work on creative initiatives. You'll find that your employees' personal interest and passion often can lead to innovative solutions for your organization. And this can be done with something as simple as a suggestion box or as organized as quarterly cross-departmental brainstorming sessions, okay? Whatever is going to be most, realistic for you. And finally, it's very important to appreciate your employees. Employee appreciation for superior performance is essential for many reasons. First, it helps your new employees to feel valued and recognized and that their work matters. In the long run, it contributes to employee retention. In fact, employees who claim their managers regularly acknowledge them for good work are 5 times more likely to stay. And that was based on a 2019 Global Culture Report. Besides leader appreciation, peer-to-peer recognition can be important in helping new employees feel valued by their team. Peer recognition and accountability cannot be stressed enough. So celebrate work anniversaries, right? That can improve your employee engagement. They feel inclined to stay when their milestones and year-over-year achievements are being recognized. Managers can build company culture in significant ways when they focus on appreciation. So you've already kind of started on this a little bit, but let's take a minute to put into the chat some of the ways in which you show appreciation for your employees. I'm going to scroll back here and kind of go back to what was going on when I was talking. I couldn't focus on both. Let's see here. Sometimes companies are worried about money, but they forget about the people. That's right. That's right. So it's, you know, a lot of times you've got a group that's on the ground and they're working and they're with, you know, with their employees and they're managing, and maybe they have pressure coming in from, you know, higher ups that's talking about financials and things of that nature. So when things are not aligned, sometimes it's difficult to find that cohesive motivational tool. And the best thing to do, I think, in that case is to just go back and focus on your core values. Try to realign in that way. Appreciation. I think think tank sessions or encourage thinking outside the box. Yes, one of the best things you can do is challenge your employees to be creative. When you're getting 8 or 9 different suggestions to something, as opposed to sitting down on your own, trying to figure it out, not only is it more fun for everyone, but your group is going to be more likely to jump on board whatever it is decided, because they got to play a role in figuring out what that was. Even if their idea isn't chosen and you end up going with your gut instinct anyway, the fact that you allowed them to come to the table and bring their ideas is huge. Authenticity when praising. Yes, well, first of all, if you're selective, right, with your feedback and you don't praise for every time they, you know, did anything correctly, right? But when they do good work and when they do try their best, to be authentic and real with them, and make it personalized. If you're only known for saying good job and you don't really make anything else out of that, it doesn't really feel very personal. So that's a great one. Authenticity when praising. As simple as it sounds, high five or fist bump as you walk by can completely change someone's day and outlook. Rick, that is so true. Sometimes you have no idea. And I'm thinking back to pre-pandemic when we were all in the office and we sat pretty close together. And so it was sometimes apparent when someone was just really struggling. You could either hear them on the phone, having a difficult phone conversation, or, you know, they just put their mouse down a little hard on the table because you could tell they're frustrated. But just going by and just like tapping them on the shoulder, fist bump, high five is sometimes just enough to give them that little extra oomph to come out of that sluggish area. Or if maybe they don't like real public praise, and that's something you're going to find from a lot of your employees, is that they want that fist bump or they want that high five, but they really don't want to be called out in front of other people. So something like that is really great as well. All right. Lastly, on engagement, I want to talk about measuring engagement because this is a big piece of it. Measurement is crucial for any company initiative, and employee engagement is no different. So here are a few ways to measure employee engagement. Do not solely rely on an annual survey. The annual survey as the only method of collecting feedback is ineffective and inaccurate. Employee will change. So you may utilize a report to see how the overall group is doing, but then you're unsure of what to do with the results. The annual survey can be a great metric to track levels of engagement over time if it's combined with other methods of feedback. On its own, though, it's not necessarily a reliable method to get an honest assessment. Number 2, utilize many methods of feedback. Pulse surveys are good. A good ongoing way of getting continuous feedback from employees. Other feedback vehicles include town halls, one-on-one meetings with leaders, team meetings, and just casual conversations. You may have conducted exit interviews, but have you ever conducted stay interviews? These can give you critical insight into why employees are choosing to remain with the organization. Look at multiple factors of engagement, okay? Don't just measure satisfaction or likelihood to recommend to others. Ask questions about various aspects of workplace culture, the employee experience, and how they feel about their leadership. Develop a battery of questions to accurately measure what's important to your people and use those same questions to measure the change over time. Always set a baseline measures before embarking on any new engagement initiatives so that you can measure the impact that those initiatives have. And lastly, communicate results and what change is being taken. This is critical. And a lot of organizations don't do this. Communicating the results and what changes will be made after asking for feedback is so important with building trust with your employees. Actively show that you value their feedback and are using it to improve the organization. This simple step of communicating and acting on employee feedback can in itself start to improve employee engagement. All right, we are getting through these. You guys are hanging with me. I appreciate it. All right, part 3, we are going to talk about some unique situations that the pandemic has brought about, okay? Pandemic fatigue, it's a real thing, and it is plaguing organizations and employees right now. In the past year, we have endured a global pandemic, a massive economic crisis, and widespread social unrest. Layer on top of fundamentally reshaping societies, technological innovation, business model disruption, social inequality, and workforce automation, it's clear that an epidemic of stress has been building with the COVID-19 crisis. Crisis is the tipping point. When you ask employees how they are doing and you get beyond the perfunctory answers of I'm fine or I'm managing through it, a deeper level of challenge emerges, okay? You may hear things like I'm anxious, I'm overwhelmed, or I'm lonely, I'm completely burned out, I've lost my sense of optimism, and I'm not sure how much longer I can do this. This is a real issue being felt by every industry in every part of the globe. Even when employees have been fortunate enough to remain healthy and hold on to their jobs, oftentimes many of those close to them have not. And this can create additional emotional and economic strain for your employees. While positive news about the drop in infection rates and effective vaccines gives us new hope, it doesn't change the fact that a lot of people are still struggling, and that may be the case for many months to come. This is more than just about coping. As Albert Einstein said, in the midst of every crisis lies a great opportunity. And organizations have an opportunity to do more than just get through it. Restoring performance and work life enjoyed before the crisis. Many employees already have a sense that we aren't simply going to bounce back to how things were before the COVID-19 crisis. And past crises have shown us that it can take months or sometimes even years after the direct operational effects of a crisis are resolved to emerge from the long period that tends to follow. So it's super important for leaders to move through these phases effectively so that you can lead with hope and with inspiration. So It's time to re-energize, okay? Even when we don't have easy answers necessarily. What can we do? Well, leaders can embrace bounded optimism successfully. They help communicate hopeful message that are less about returning to normal and more about acceptance, okay? You should relate that the fact that we're likely not going back exactly to the way we were, but that we're going to be better than before. In other words, shift the narrative from what's been lost to what's become possible in a balanced way. In particular, grounding the narrative in your organization's purpose helps employees make sense of their new reality and regain a sense of stability, which can help reignite individual motivation, well-being, and productivity. Number 2, create a space for employees to share how they are. Leaders sometimes start by showing vulnerability themselves, which sends a powerful signal that it's okay not to be okay. Perhaps more important than how organizations listen is how often they listen. It's not enough to launch a couple of listening efforts and then act, okay? Organizations must listen continuously, taking a regular pulse of how employees are doing. This will be especially important over the next year, as employee moods and needs are bound to fluctuate with the potential for great impact. Number 3, the ability to grow and develop, especially during times of change and stress, is a new high priority muscle for you, for the leaders to build. The pandemic has forced every organization to adapt quickly and often with scarce resources. So lead by example and your employees will follow, okay? Here's your opportunity to just emulate the behavior that you want to see from them. And lastly, now I realize that your busiest season is quickly approaching. So encouraging employees to take time away from work probably isn't a realistic expectation. There are still several things you can do to encourage your employees to make the most of their downtime, their weekends and their evenings. Something as simple as talking openly with your teams about how you refresh your own energy is a great start. Getting proper sleep, getting enough, healthy food, regular exercise, spending time at a child's sports game, relaxing by the pool, or taking a staycation to, a local attraction are all practical and simple ways for us all to reconnect with our friends and loved ones and re-energize us for the week ahead. So let's do that right now. Let's share with each other in the chat, what are some ways in the past year that you have all learned to decompress, refresh yourselves, even if it's just for an hour, even if it's, over the weekend. I've had quite a few people tell me that they have started doing just 10-minute meditations sometimes on their breaks, just to kind of decompress that way. Puzzles, picnic for lunch. Oh, I love this, Mateo. That is fantastic. I don't know what the weather's been like for you guys lately, but it has been horrible over here in Houston. And I can't wait for the sun to come out again. And that's a great idea. Spending time outdoors. Yes, get that sunshine and that fresh air. Sometimes just, 10, 20 minutes of that is enough to re-energize you. So give your employees an opportunity to do that. Encourage them to do that on their break time. Reading books. Yes, sometimes you can get lost in a new book, right? Just take a little mini escape from what's happening. Painting. Oh, that's wonderful. I am so not artistic at all, Elizabeth, but I love that. Reading and taking walks outdoors. Yes. Breathing, therapy, occasional glass of wine, and a binge show. Nancy, we need to hang out. That sounds amazing. Yes, all of those things. They're extremely important. Took up working out. Leslie, that's great. One of the things that this has given us time sometimes is a little bit more downtime when things were closed, right? These are all great ideas. And these are all things that you should share with your employees when they're telling you, I'm really stressed out and I don't know what to do. Well, I really enjoy fiction books, or I really enjoy meditation, or, it's beautiful. Why don't you take a break and go take 10 minutes to get some fresh air? These are all things we can do to keep people going and keep them motivated, even in spite of all of this. Okay. Thank you for sharing those, by the way. All right. We have one more piece to go through. And this, I have to say, was the most exciting one for me to prepare for this. I actually, in addition to doing research on Generation Z, I was able to interview quite a few people in Generation Z. And so what we're going to be discussing today is really just kind of getting to know them, and what their expectations are from the workplace. And they're their own group. They are not millennials. We've been talking about millennials, it seems, forever. So it's kind of nice to get to know this new group of individuals. So we're going to get ready for Generation Z. Born between roughly 1997 and 2012. There's still a little give or take on those numbers there. They make up about almost 25% of the US population. And they are on track to be the most diverse generation in US history. Gen Z is finally making its presence known in the workplace and in a major way. And it's important to understand the differences that set this group apart. So, poll question. What do you think Gen Zers value the most? Now, I didn't put everything on here, okay? I put a couple of options, but of the things that are listed, what do you think is most important for this generation? Okay, we've got some answers coming in. A lot saying remote flexible work, digital communication, fun working environment, free food and snacks. Let's see. Get another couple of seconds on here to vote. All right, I'm going to close it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so here's where we are. Which of the following do you think they value the most? Most of you said 43% said digital communication. Yeah, that makes sense. 29% fun working environment. Absolutely. Remote flexible work, 24%. Free food and snacks. Security and important titles do not seem that important to this group. So let's see what the polls said. What? Security? What? Where did that come from? We're going to learn, okay? This is a very different group of people, and they are kind of breaking some expectations that we have thought, all right? So, Generation Z is a cosmopolitan generation. They have never known a world where the internet did not exist. They were literally born in the digital age. Google is older than most of these people, okay? And as a result, global events have actively shaped their view of the world. Gen Z has grown up in a time of turbulence and instability, mixed with hope for a better future. Disruption and change have been the norm for them from day one. So you can see why they probably value security so highly. That's not to say they don't want free snacks or they don't want the ability to have, flexible arrangement, but at the core, at what matters most to them is that they are safe. Let's see why. Terrorism and war. They cannot remember a time before 9/11. Social networking. This is a means for them to connect with people all over the world. And because of that, they also see the turbulence and the things happening in other countries in real time in a way that we did not as children. Smartphones, okay? Most of them have never used or seen a landline or a payphone, okay? They've always had the world at their fingertips. Think about the Great Recession, 2008. They saw their parents lose their homes, their jobs. Many ended up moving into multi-generational homes. So that created another dynamic for this group. Gun violence and school shootings. They have practiced active shooter drills like we did fire drills. Remarkably, Generation Z has also grown up amid unprecedented tolerance. Most can't remember a time when there wasn't an African-American president and a woman as a serious contender. President Obama took office before any of them reached the age of 12. What is their personality? Well, this is not a very fair question because, you know, obviously they're all individuals and they're going to say, don't put me in a box. So I kind of put that as a joke. When I was interviewing the individuals for this, that was something that was said over and over again. Well, I am myself, I don't even like being classified as Gen Z, okay? They're primarily the children of those born in Generation X. And those Gen X parents raised them to be independent and able to figure things out for themselves. They're also a record-breaking generation. In the United States, they are on track to be the most well-educated generation, and they are also the most racially and ethnically diverse generation. Don't expect them to be silent or silent. They are opinionated, they are vocal, and they will not be ignored. Volunteerism and corporate social responsibility are incredibly important to this group. Massive social unrest, both here in the US and abroad, have impacted their worldview and what they value. Protests for equal rights, immigration, climate change, gender equality, all have been heavily spearheaded by Generation Z. Now they are entering the workforce for the first time during a pandemic, okay? So in many ways, you would say that this group has had some stuff stacked against them, you know, but on the other hand, they also have the world at their fingertips, right? So what does this mean for you as leaders, as you're bringing in this new generation to try to help them develop and grow, as well as conform to what you need for the organization, right? There's some things you can do. Give them independence and ownership, okay, of things that you're comfortable that they can control. Generation Z is not motivated by titles, but they are role hoppers, okay? They have zero interest in climbing the corporate ladder right now, but that doesn't mean that they reject leadership altogether. As one of the most self-sufficient generations, managers should take advantage of their independence and their ability to research, okay? So here's what you can do. Give them ownership of a project that you believe they can successfully implement from start to finish. Even if it's something small, even if it's something minor, it's going to go a long way. Give them the space to share their ideas and use their creativity to benefit your group, okay? They want to be heard. And, you know, while they may not have as much insight on the history of the organization and the way things are done, they may be able to bring you a wonderful, fresh, new perspective on how things could be done differently. Don't rely on conventional job roles and tasks. If you're able to, try to rotate their positions and allow them to shadow other roles, maybe. It will help them develop their work skill set and it will keep them motivated. Give them the tools for independent research and use online courses if possible to encourage personal and professional development. So if they have a way that they can take a little micro learning class on their phone for 10 minutes, they're gonna jump all over that. That's right, that's their cup of tea. Also, team collaboration and communication are huge with this group. Generation Z strongly value social interaction. So much so that most prefer speaking to friends, family, and coworkers face-to-face rather than text. That surprised me a little bit because, you know, the kids that I know, speaking of my own, are just, you know, kind of glued to this, right? But when asked specifically about it, they said, no, we really crave family connection. We crave face-to-face, and especially when we're entering the workforce for the first time, we don't want to do it from behind a screen. We need to be in the mix of it. We've got to grow and develop, and the best way to do that is hands-on and face-to-face. So create a culture that fosters team spirit to encourage Gen Zers to stay put, okay? You wanna make sure you give them plenty of ways to collaborate and communicate, both in person and online. So use a mix. You can choose video calls over a phone call. Opting for, you know, regularly recurring meetings to give them that human connection that they crave. And don't skimp on the feedback. They constantly seek validation and want daily communication. Remember, this is the post-Google generation. They are not used to waiting to hear if they've done a good job. They're not waiting to hear, you know, did they really mess something up? They would rather you have that conversation with them as quickly as possible, so that if they are doing something incorrectly, then they can quickly do a course correction on that. Review your communication channels. They do prefer communication-wise, you know, when it comes to just quick answers, email, text, and social media, as long as, like I said, that you continue that face-to-face mix. The flexibility and freedom to unplug. So we talked about millennials for like 20 years, and they did change the way we work forever by pushing more flexibility in the workplace. So here comes Generation Z, and they want to continue to blur those lines, all right, between work and life. So if you want to attract and retain them and avoid high turnover, you should try the following. If possible, implement some type of flexible schedule, whether it's job sharing or something of that nature. At the very least, encourage a culture of unplugging and respecting personal time. So when they do go home to their families, they do really value that time. And unlike, you know, the boomers and the millennials who would just stay plugged in 24/7, Gen Z really prioritizes their personal time. So make it a cultural norm that once that clock is off, that they really do have that time to themselves to connect. Embrace new technology. Yes, technology and Gen Z, of course, go hand in hand. This generation expects technology to fit and work seamlessly, not just in their personal lives, but in their professional lives as well. So sluggish Wi-Fi or non-intuitive interfaces will frustrate them, okay? If you want to keep them happy, you need to be sure that the workplace integrates modern technology to satisfy their desire for the social interaction and productivity. So you can do this by making use of instant messaging tools, giving them access to massive open online courses, raise productivity workshops to help your team work efficiently both in the office and at home. Use tools to improve productivity of specific verticals. So for instance, integrate email tracking tools for sales, or, you know, if anyone does marketing or something like that. So that's all integrated together. And then lastly, listen to them. This was echoed by everyone I talked to and in all of the research. They, one of their biggest worries in the workplace is ageism. They don't want to be ignored or have to forfeit opportunities just because of their age. They believe that promotions and responsibilities should be based on ideas and their contributions. So they don't expect a handout. They fully expect to earn it, but they don't want to be turned down simply because that they're young. So you can help them feel heard and valued by inviting them to strategy meetings. Allow them to be a part of the collaboration and idea pool. Listening to their ideas on new processes and the way the business is working. They may bring something different to the table. Remember to value their insights despite their age and their lack of experience. While they, probably feel a little bit like they can just sort of come in and prove themselves and move up and that kind of thing. It's often important to remind them it's a balance, right? You can't sort of just jump in and start leading the way. You do need to earn your stripes, but you need to be given opportunities to push yourself and to stretch yourself. So it's going to be a little bit of a challenge, I think, with this generation and overwhelmingly what their expectations are in the workplace. But the good thing that I was able to gain from this is that they are willing to be loyal to a company. They just need to be able to experience new things, right? So job sharing and rotation would be critical. Listening to them is important. And finally, treating them with the same respect as someone more senior would go a long way. Again, they are extremely fearful of ageism. All of them reiterated this to me. So I don't know. I don't know if it's because they maybe grew up a little bit faster than some of us because of everything that they were exposed to their entire lives. Or if it's just a real fear of theirs of just being young, right? So that kind of, I'm glad. Thank you, Stephanie, for mentioning adding this to the presentation. This was a request, and I think it's extremely important because this is who you're going to be bringing on, right, in the next couple of weeks. So I do want to, I know we just covered a lot of information in a relatively short period of time. I hope you were able to take some good notes and perhaps think about implementing a few of these ideas with your teams. I do want to open back up the chat at this time for any questions you may have regarding all of the topics that we covered. Or, even better yet, share with the group some of the things that you might want to start implementing, pretty soon. Well, if you don't have any questions, that's okay. I can always give you back a little bit more time in your break before your next session. So Valerie.
Hi, Mandy. I will actually be thanking you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day, especially on a Friday, to give us this wonderful presentation.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure, and I really enjoyed putting it together, and I hope that you all have a fantastic summer with everything that's ramping up right now. So I do thank you for letting me be a part of that.
Thank you once again. Everyone else, we will be back at 10.